Dr. Barry live, if you like, in Melbourne, and Mick Holt live up in Queensland. And we got two fantastic people down the bottom here, Stephanie and Mike, or correction, Stephanie and Alex, who are on the committee for the International Common Law Court on behalf of the people of Australia and in fact the world. So we're having this meeting here this morning. Well, it's not a meeting, it's just basically letting you know what's going on. So anybody's got any questions, put their hand up and we'll go from there. Alex, what was your opinion of the situation we find ourselves in right now? How are we going?
Look, I said this about a week ago, that we were at a crossroad, a crucial point in the development of common law courts in Australia. And that played itself out last night, because what was evident was that a lot of people have different opinions about what should be happening. And rather than coming together, which the majority of groups are doing, there's one or two people who want to pursue their own agendas. And what happened last night was that quite a large group of people met online, and many of them were there for the first time finding out about common law courts, and they were frustrated with what's happening with the so-called legal system and their lack of access to justice. And so they turned up to that meeting with a great amount of hope. And we all share that hope. We all shared that hope. But bubbling below the surface is also a lot of frustration. And because of the way that the meeting was run last night, it caused a lot of conflict, and that caused a lot of frustration to come to the surface. And unfortunately, that dominated most of the meeting, and there was not a lot of common sense coming through to move forward. But I sat there and I observed the passion of people. And it was that passion of people that I was hooking into, and that they, even though they got frustrated, it was the hope that brought them there. And I'm hoping that we can build on that, and we can give them something to be hopeful about and keep moving forward to facilitate a process where these people can get justice. That's what I got from last night.
Just a second. That's fantastic. But what happened last night was the committee was already set up. We have state committees, which is what happened last night. A number of people, we made a mistake in the beginning. We called it a committee. And sometimes when you set up a committee, you get white anting. And a small number of people hijacked a meeting last night, sent out invitations, which was nothing to do with the real common law court committee people, if you wish. And they had a meeting of their own. They dipped into our private Dropbox and took your emails addresses out. And this, the reason we're having this little chat now nationally and internationally is to let people know that we were a little bit hijacked last night, and everything is now back under control. So Mick, over to you, Mick.
Okay. Is a little bit hijacked a little bit like a little bit of Virgin? The fact is, there were a small group of people who tried to hijack the common law court system. I think the main point of difference between their group and ours is that they want to turn it into a commercial venture, charging people for their services and documentation, whereas the original common law court, which is us, we don't charge for documentation and things like that. In fact, we don't charge anything. It's a court of the people, by the people, for the people, and therefore we don't feel that we should be making money out of this. So that's a very important point to make. Another thing that I think happened last night is very concerning, is that this other group that tried to hijack the common law courts is in breach of the law. They sent out an email and exposed everybody's email addresses, and that is actually a breach of the law, and we will be following up on that. So for all of those who were on the other meeting and left in frustration or didn't understand what was going on, I'm hoping that this recording today will help explain what's going on. And also last night, we had another meeting on Zoom, and we elected a proper committee rather than the steering committee. So the steering committee has been dissolved, and we now have a committee. And all we are doing really is, I guess, steering things in the right direction. I know for myself up here in Queensland, I'm very, very keen to start convening these common law courts, because I think I've sent you, Alex, how many claims at this stage, or affidavits? About a dozen, right?
Yeah, it's a good swag, and given that we've had quite a number from other people as well, that we're literally, I would say, within 4 weeks of running our first common law courts under this system. And it's not our system. We're just providing an avenue for anyone who's got a grievance. And if anyone else wants to set up another system, they're more than welcome to do it. I'd be happy if there were common law courts running all over Australia. I don't care who's running them.
Yeah, I'd like to ask our friends from New South Wales, Stephen or John, their opinion of what's happened, as they're the members of the committee in New South Wales. Go ahead, Stephanie. You're looking really sprucey this hour of the morning, and you were in another meeting and you had to cancel this business meeting to pop on here.
Exactly. I've just cancelled my meeting, but it's great to be part of this team, because I think the most important thing here is that we all standing for a space to be able to take our cases and claims against all of this corruption that we are engulfed by and blindsided by. And so, like Alex was saying earlier, the passion there from the people is about the frustration of not having that space. And from the confusion that was created last night comes the issue now that I hope all of these people that were there last night can actually see what the real agenda is. The real agenda is to get this set up free with no payment for the people to bring their cases forward, to bring all this corruption to task. So I believe that, the group that has been formed was created by Barry and Alex, who are the founders of this in Australia. And then from there, the train has started rolling, and it has been continuing now for the past 12 weeks. And so Alex and Barry have brought this to a committee. We've formed a group, and then down the track, if these people want to be voted in and we change the people that are running the show, so be it. But for now, the train has to run with the people that set this up.
Well said, very well said. John, you're on the New South Wales committee as well. Have you anything to say in relation to that last night? You've been very quiet there for the last few minutes.
Look, I was when I heard about it yesterday, I was disappointed, to say the least, but I wasn't surprised. Now, in saying this, I'll comment on the conduct of last night. I think under the statute system, it's deceptive and misleading conduct that I would target them with, first and foremost. But that aside, look, I think the current system is a monopoly, really. The people have nowhere else to go to have their grievances heard or heard, to say the least, let alone acted on. And this avenue, I'll call it that, of the common law court, should be embraced by everyone in a unified, almost military precision parade rhythm, where everyone's in sync with their step. And these rogue, what did I call them yesterday? Splinter group, basically. You'll find them everywhere, really. It's like a little splint in your finger that's annoying, But look, end of the day, we know what the purpose is. The purpose isn't for the individual. The purpose is for the cosmos, basically. And, we're here to do whatever it takes to make it happen.
Yeah, just a second. Yeah, the bottom line is, as I said to Alex in the early days, which is only a few weeks ago, we met by sheer coincidence. It was just, look, you meet people in your life that changes things, and this has changed a lot of things. And we got together and we put this together. And just because we have that awful word committee, I think we should put that in the square box as well, because it's always causes problems with white anting. We got together and we said at the time, we'd love to look back in a few years' time and see some young people doing this. And we don't want to monopolize anything. We just want to get this court thing up and running. We want to stand back and say, look at this, it's working. we're looking over nursing homes if we're in wheelchairs and say we're still going. But anyway, that's all I want. And so far we've done it and it's all set up. So let's keep it going.
Well, I came into this through you, Barry, really. And thank you for that.
Mm. And so did I, yeah.
Well, everybody here is here because of Alex and me. Up to Queensland now and carry on up there, Michael, and take the chair for a second.
Thank you. I want to make the point that last night on the other group, during the meeting, they accused the first common law court group, which is us, of being dictatorial. Well, I have not seen any evidence of that at all. And in fact, Alex has been extremely fair. He's always allowed the group to make the decisions. He's never actually made any dictatorial decisions on his own. It's always been by group assent. We've held elections in the same vein. So I don't see that why anybody would want to go for the other group, who are more intent on making money rather than providing the service and justice that the people of Australia require.
Mm.
Okay, Alex, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, look, we always try to do the best that we can. And I think that the reason we've come together is because of divine providence. I don't think it's any one person that's can take the credit for anything. No, there was no coincidence really in Barry and I meeting that we were meant to meet. And both of us knew that this had to be done. And we were just the ones who kick-started it. But the real power in this is the people that have come on board. And, that's what we have, is we have an extraordinary team of people who are working to create an avenue for everyone in Australia who chooses to respond to the injustices. Now, last night there were a lot of young people on that call, and I was absolutely horrified because the people who were being the most foolish, childish, were supposed to be the old and wise ones. And the message that, and I include myself in that group, all of us who were over 45 or 50 set a terrible example to this younger generation. And we have a lot of making up to do to prove to them that the older generation actually are not the problem.
No, I think the real problem is the political party corporate government that is dictating our lives at the moment.
Yep.
What we're going to do here with the common law courts is to change that and to bring back real justice for the people. And that starts in the law. And the law is our common law, English common law. So by setting up English common law courts in Australia, we're giving all Australians the opportunity to seek redress and justice. And that's what it's all about.
I think this was a good training ground for us last night because we know that corrupt legal system is not going to just lie down and let us do this. They're going to try and intimidate us. They're going to bully us. But we've got a resolve here. The power is with the people, not with a handful of police that, have been conditioned to think the wrong way.
Yeah, and another good point is we're set up with the UK. So all our paperwork, it goes to the UK, it comes back from the UK. So it couldn't be seen that anybody here is running their own agenda because everything will be approved in the United Kingdom and by the common law courts, which has been running over there for the last nearly 3 years now. And of course, it originated there and it continued off in America with the sheriffs and so on and so forth. So all our stuff is controlled and run by the UK and not by our little so-called committees. Another bad word again. I wish I had a different name for committees, but our group. Okay, now all those people last night who want to come on board, there'll be plenty of work to do when this is running. At the moment, it's nothing more than a talk fest. We have got nothing in running, and we will do as soon as this fairy tale virus thing is all over with, and the politics, which is corporations, let us go back and have normal lives again if it's ever possible. Anyways, Mike, you want to say something up there in Queensland?
Yes, you mentioned the Common Law Courts United Kingdom, which is great. We're associated and affiliated with them, and they are helping us to prepare our paperwork. But don't forget the International Common Law Courts of Justice, led by people like Kevin Annett, from Canada. Now, I've been working with Kevin for about a year. I've also conducted some interviews with him, and he's actually just emailed me this morning asking to have another chat with me as he's got some more important information. Now, for those of you who are listening and don't know who Kevin Annett is, he was an Anglican priest in Canada who was assigned to go and work in Anglican church schools, boarding schools and that. And he was horrified to find out that the priests were abusing the children, and the Indian children, the native Indians, and in some cases murdering them. And I don't know exactly how many bodies they have dug up around some of these places, but it is actually in the hundreds.
Yeah.
And it's a disgusting thing. But Kevin, as a result, he resigned from the priesthood at great sacrifice to himself and his family. And he set up the International Common Law Courts of Justice. You can find it on Google. And he prosecuted Pope Benedict and a whole bunch of cardinals in the court. They were convicted. And as a result, when Benedict tried to travel to, I think it was Spain, he found out that the International Common Law Court of Justice sheriffs were ready to arrest him when he came off the plane. So he's now confined to the Vatican. He can't leave because he's scared of being arrested by the sheriffs. And this common law court here in Australia is about ready to start appointing some sheriffs as well. Now, the sheriffs have equal or even, I think, even more power than the police. Is that correct, Alex?
Well, I'll explain that. Basically, when it comes to the power, there can't be a power struggle, but the sheriff is the highest authority in the land because he's elected by the people. And a good example of that was in the States, and I spent a lot of time with different sheriff departments in the States over the years. The sheriff actually can deputize a member of any of the city police forces. As you know, every city in America has got a police force, like the councils here, which in England started off, there was hundreds of police forces. It's down to 42 different police forces in the States. But the sheriff can actually deputize them, and they're breaking the law if they don't comply with the requests of the sheriff. Now, I don't want to see us in competition with the police force because they're bigger and grander than us. And our job will be to administrate whatever the jury find in relation to a guilty or not guilty verdict and to deliver the summonses. So we're not going to take on the police forces, although we have, if elected by the people, the authority to do anything that promotes justice. And not like the system which we're in now promotes. I've named the courts here as the new state banks, and I think it applies to all the states. Is there anybody in New South Wales who wants to comment on that? And then Alex might want to say something, because Alex is the mediator, keeps us all calm. Stephanie?
Yeah, I'd like to, you send me the badge, the badge that we can use as the sheriff.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great idea to go forward with that and actually, even get some uniforms organised that, people can be wearing. That shows that, this is real and it has a place, and to give recognition that, first of all, to eliminate any confusion that was caused last night, that, we go forward in a positive, powerful way. And I believe that bringing in something that has that badge on it with a uniform or on the sleeve, a shirt that people can put over their own clothes, I think that would be a really beneficial part of the substance and the security of what it is we're setting up. Because at the end of the day, it is about looking after us, the common man.
And woman.
And woman.
and all those in between. Alex, have you got a comment on that?
I know Stephanie's hit the nail on the head there. We're doing a lot of work behind the scenes to get the proper infrastructure in place so that if Mary Jane down the road wants to file a claim, she doesn't feel lost and alone. She knows that there's a team of people who are supporting her, who are guiding her, and ultimately will handle all the necessary things for her so that she doesn't feel threatened when she goes to a court. She doesn't feel that she's at the mercy of a judge or a magistrate or something like that, that she feels comfortable to tell her story to her peers. And the work that's being done behind the scene, what Barry and Stephanie just spoke about, is an example of that, about us creating a sheriff system in alignment with everything we're doing. And that's just one layer of what the committee has been discussing since day one.
And
And now we're in a position as an executive committee with state committees throughout Australia to be able to start rolling out those infrastructures.
And when we use the word committee and stuff, we're not interested in the power aspect of it. And that's what happened with a few people in the beginning. They wanted power. They wanted to be the chairman. We look, a good example, Brian from Queensland, he's the chairman of the New South Wales committee up there. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I got up at 8:30 to do something specifically. I didn't get a chance to do it. And at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I didn't have a chance to have a shave. I didn't even, the project I had in mind to set up was forgotten about because I was tied up in running this. Alex is the same. Alex goes on to every committee meeting to help them in Tasmania, Western Australia, New South Wales. He's on Zoom meetings all the time. It's a wonder poor Alex can sit up straight in that chair because he's put his heart and soul into this, not to make Alex famous or anything, to get this thing off the ground, and we can stand back and watch other people run it. Hopefully, in the very near future, we will just be there to help. And the whole committee's idea is on the same track now, and we will get there. We will get the sheriff set up, and we won't have any committees on the sheriff. It'll be an independent thing. So we're gonna get there. It just all those people out there who want to help, and there's a lot of people. We all get emails. You will be helping, because this is going to be bigger than Ben-Hur, as they say, because there's going to be public meetings, you're going to help there. You could be a part of the official sheriffs, you could be anything. It's open, it could be massive, and it will be. So I'd like to go over to Queensland and see what Mike up there has got to say in relation to this, or he's got another question. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, actually, you brought up a good point there. If you go to my website, mywillaustralia.com, there is a thing on the main menu for the court, and you can go on there if you want to get involved in setting up a common law court or being a part of the common law court. You can register your interest on there, and it all goes to the central secretary, national secretary, and she sorts everything out according to the states. And as soon as we are ready to start calling for nominations for the first court, that will happen, because we will have a pool of volunteers ready to step up. And nothing will be done until we have the, I've got a nice little green ghost there behind me. Nothing will happen until everybody involved has voted in the people who will sit in the court, who will be the jury, who will be the court chairman, who will be the sheriff, the bailiff, etc. Everything will be done by the will of the people. There's no dictatorship here. It's all according to the people. So I think it's very important to note, and I will put up a link to the website so that you can see where to go in this video.
Okay. John up there wanted to say something a few minutes ago, and we definitely don't want to leave you out of this. Come on, John. What have you got to say?
Look, I think the visible presence is important, because people associate when they look at something that it solidifies their thought or their thinking of that, whatever it is. In this case, the common law court, if they start to see, whether it's in the media, whether it's on the street, action, or the process in action rather, they themselves become more confident in that process and are more susceptible to be willing to participate if they have a need to do so, or even to help or to assist. Doesn't have to be a personal issue or gripe they have with the system, but there's an ability there. Once they understand what's going on, they can see for themselves, yes, it's not just another talk show, so to speak. Then they'll be more inclined to get involved in whatever capacity they can.
Right, but to do that, we really need volunteers. So please volunteer if you want to get involved in setting up a common law court or being a part of it. You don't have to have any qualifications. This is a court of the people to hear the grievances of other people who have been harmed by this political party corporate government system, and then we will be seeking justice. Now, a lot of people ask me, Well, once the court makes it, hands down a judgment, what happens then? Well, we have a few options there. What the court will be doing is holding the people who have caused the harm accountable for their actions. Now, we cannot hold an organisation like a city council accountable, but we can hold the mayor or the CEO or even the parking ticket inspector. All of these people are causing harm to the community and they can be held accountable. Now, how do we do that? Well, we have a few options. One of them would be commercial liens. Another one would be publicity. There are many, many things that we can come together and agree on. So any judgment would be bound also by the will of the people of the community. So if enough people in the community say, all right, we've had this common law court decision, now let's all get together and enforce that. Now, I would just want to give you an example. In the American War of Independence from England, what the townspeople did, they used to get together outside the courthouse and in big groups and not allow anybody into the courthouse. And in some cases, they even dragged out the judge or the magistrate and forced them to walk through the crowd of people chanting nasty things at them. And in some cases, even tarred and feathered them. So, you know, the will of the people will prevail. But I don't recommend tarring and feathering.
I think the RSPCA would be up in arms if we were using that many feathers.
Yeah. Could I, which I'm willing to do, name and shame the people who started this off? I'm quite willing to put the evidence up there. What's the opinion of the 5 people on here? Go ahead.
I would like to say I believe because of the let me regroup. I agree with what Alex said earlier this is not about naming people, but hang on, I'm going to go one further there because the problem with the group last night, one, that there were a lot of new people and they were absolutely totally confused and had no idea what was going on. They didn't understand this argument between 2 different groups, and they were there for a real reason, which was about common law. So I do believe in this instance we do need to name and shame these people, because the confusion of the new people are not going to ever get a clarity and understand where the real train started or where the real ship is docked. And the real ship is docked with Alex and Barry, and they need to get onto the right ship and sail the ship and take this to a space of peace. And peace is where we've got an opening for them to bring all of their grievances and their claims.
Okay.
Well said.
That's 1 vote.
I agree.
You agree, then that's 2. Mike agrees, Alex, and okay, well
hang on, before we do that, I mean, initially the question I ask is, does it serve the purpose to name and shame? And initially I would have said, I don't think it does, but Stephanie's raised a very interesting aspect, which I am definitely going to take on board, is that the people need to know not so much the shaming aspect, but the truth of what happened.
Yeah, okay.
And I think it's fine to be able to say to them, look, this was our own IT guy who hijacked it.
Okay.
This was our own state deputy who lied about his involvement to the people last night. And the people need to understand that the people who are on board our train have acted with integrity all the way through. And they have to be aware that the confusion that they experienced last night and witnessed last night was because those that were with integrity were standing up for the people to expose the fraud that it was being perpetrated on them. And that's what the fraudsters didn't want. They didn't want us to talk until they were overpowered by the people to say, let them talk.
Yes, I would.
People will respect us more if we don't name them, but we certainly can name the positions they
We'll show them. We'll show them. And people will know
I
them.
disagree there. I think we need to name them to avoid any confusion, because
Okay.
people don't know these people. They don't even know us.
That's
So we
exactly
need to
what
make
I
sure
just
that people
said.
understand.
Okay, we're continuing on here now. We're going to talk to John, has something to say in New South Wales. Go ahead, John.
Very in line with the events that occurred last night, I think, as Alex and others mentioned, the majority, if not all the people there, were there for what they thought was the true or correct purpose, and not knowing that this event's playing out in the background. So they were, to use an analogy of a train and going down a particular track, they thought they were jumping on train A that looked like the common law court train, and it's going over there. And yet the train B was also made to look like the common law court train, and all the signs on the platform pointed to train B, and people thought, okay, well, that's the common law court. Well, that's where the forum is. We'll go there. So they went there, and this train went off on another path, them not knowing, up until a certain point when everyone jumped in and forced them to allow others to speak, well, they realised, hang on, we're on the wrong train. We're going the wrong direction. So I think that it needs to be highlighted to them in a more sort of plain English, if you like, or a manner that they can understand.
Yeah, I second that, John. You know, the whole purpose of this has to be absolutely clear and precise, and no possibility for confusion. Because the common law court is common law for the common man. It is simple, it is not complicated, it is simple English, and the structure has to be that simple that there's no confusion, and everybody that sees this documentary about the truth of the common law and the origination of where it started and who it started with, everybody needs to jump on board and feel safe that they're going in the right direction. And the only way that we can portray that to them, that this is the correct common law, these are the people that started it, these are your leaders, because everybody does look up to a leader. That is pure and simple.
Okay, can I suggest that we move this along, because we are getting on time here, and I don't think people want to watch a long video. So, Alex, would you like to make the statement, and then we can fold it up?
Look, the differentiation, as far as I see it, is that you've got a group of people who have established themselves along the Conduit principle, who've worked hard for 12 weeks and have acted with integrity from day one. And there's some people who haven't been happy with that, who have an agenda to monetize the common law court, who, and this is just my personal opinion, who acted without integrity, who acted unethically. And that was reflected in the schmozzle that eventuated last night, in the way that they kept cutting off people. They'd ask them to speak, and then when the person started to speak, they interrupted them to cut them off. That's not democracy to me.
Can we know who these people were who tried to form a splinter group?
Scott Ferguson was the IT person that was part of our team, who went into our database and exposed that database unlawfully and illegally for his own purposes. The person who was also accompanying and part of this process was Mark Andrew and Andy Legge. And that's just my personal opinion on the evidence that I've seen and the behaviour of them. Whether people still want to align with those people, that's their choice. They still maintain that they are promoting and want to promote common law courts, and they're happy to do that, and I'm happy for them to do that too. But we've acted with integrity, and we'll continue to do so.
Yeah, I think you bring up a very good point there, Alex, in that Scott Ferguson sent out that email to everybody, but he did not use BCC for the email addresses. So now we have this huge list of all the members who've registered exposed to public, and that is a crime. It actually is a crime.
And he wasn't authorised by the committee to send out in the first place.
No.
Perhaps we, down the track a little bit, we could make them a test case for the common law court if we could see on reasonable grounds that these people have committed offences against the people. We could look at that later on. And John's got his hand up in New South Wales. Go ahead, John.
The question I have is in relation to that splinter group and the original foundation stone of the common law court here in Australia, and links back to England. So the people or the population at large, how will they identify a distinction between the two? Or are they still allowed to maintain a link with the International Common Law Court?
Yeah, last night, as we were speaking, I was talking to John in England. He knows exactly what's going on. He actually said we made a mistake by forming committees because he didn't, and he has no problem with that. But we're
Right.
going to run things a little bit more professional here because we need a group of people involved in the background. Poor John is doing a lot of the work on his own. He's got volunteers as well. So people who register with the Common Law Court don't expect results back from there within a day or two because it's all volunteers over there. They're not as organized as us, although they've got a lot of experience in the court aspect. John Smith in the UK knows exactly what's going on here. He was approached by these guys and he wasn't very happy about it, not only on one occasion, but on 3 or 4 occasions. And he does not want to communicate with them. And as far as at this now time, as they say in law, he will have nothing whatsoever to do with them. Over to you, Alex.
Yeah, I think that was the point. John Smith found that they weren't operating through the proper channels and they were trying to push an agenda of monetarising the thing to John. And when they didn't get the resolve they wanted, they decided that they were going to just do it anyway. I got involved in this because I wanted my kids to grow up free. Not just because I wanted my kids to grow up free, but I wanted your kids to grow up free as well. Mm. And I saw the way that this pathway that we're on at the moment is heading. And if you ever read 1984 or Brave New World, that's what they're advertising and that's what they intend to do. Mm. So if you're watching this and you're confused, don't give up hope. Hope springs eternal. There are people on this panel, on this committee. They're not just fighting for themselves and their kids. They're fighting for your kids. They're fighting for your rights. So even if you don't do anything, that's okay. But don't do anything against what we're doing because we're fighting for you.
That's a fantastic statement to make as we wind this up because, as I said, it's gone a long time and we have to edit all this to put it into context, which is not much editing because it's pretty straightforward. So, Mike, have you got any questions before we say goodbye to our friends from around Australia in general?
No, I think that's it, mate. I'm very happy and proud to be a part of this group, and thank you all for inviting me in. I've been very impressed with the way it's all been set up, and I will continue to support you and work for justice and freedom.
Hear, hear. Stephanie, you'd like to sign off and say goodbye to everybody?
Yes. I would like to thank everybody for the diligent work and, I think what comes out of this is our comradeship and that's what will keep this ship together. And I know we will get there because we all have a common cause and at the end of the day, it is for the common man and we know where we're travelling and we will get there.
And now you can go back to the meeting that you walked out of. Stephanie is a business lady up in Sydney and she's obviously very busy. So she chucked out a board meeting just to come on here because that's how dedicated she is. And John, do you want to say goodbye and anything to say before we close down?
Look, I'm not going to add to the depth and the wisdom that's already been expressed. All I want to say is that with the energy that's abundant, it's impossible for this thing to topple over.
Fantastic. Well, anyway, from me in Melbourne, I'd like to thank everybody for participating in this broadcast. And Mike up there, again, will be broadcasting. We'll both share our broadcast. And everybody out there, have a look at this, share it, stick with us for the time being. We've got a committee and a terrible name for something that is just a group of people dedicated to steer this in the right direction. Nobody's going to get paid for it. And we hope to, in a few weeks' time, when we get venues again, we will start putting what we speak into practice. Anyways, from London News, thank you very much for watching and share the word. And Mike, do you want to have another say before we plug the end of this?
Oh, I love the final word, mate. No, I just want to say thank you to everybody and God bless. And coming from an atheist, how's that? But truth, justice, and the Australian way.
And may the sheep stand by you.
I think you're on the wrong place.
I'll ask you a question, Glenn. What do you think to Skull?
The question at the end of the what was that at the end? Say, Andy, again.
I'll say, what do you think to Scott?
To Skull?
Scott. Scott. What are your thoughts to Scott?
Interesting question.
I'll just
And
turn this round so you can see it.
Interesting question to the table in the best way they possibly can. So I want to be optimistic unless proven otherwise. And look, tomorrow night's meeting is going to be very interesting in that regard. Let me say that.
Well, it's going to be pretty empty room by the sounds of it.
Well, I thought the way Scott was telling me tonight was like hundreds of people want to turn up. So where these hundreds of people are coming from, I've got no idea. But like there is some of those
registering from the website, Glenn. Think of registering on the website. Because he told me the same today.
Trying to be optimistic, all right? We can have this discussion.
230 people registered at the moment to try and turn up at that Zoom meeting. There was 161 that matched to it today. And that's what I've got to read these association rules again now because, you know, Alec couldn't come out with the numbers, but I just want to read it through and make sure he's right because if he isn't,
look,
you're just going to get people off spurring in different directions. It's going to cause a big shit fight, I think. Start thinking, do no harm, do no wrong, look after thy neighbour. And I'm not a godly bloke, so just think about start thinking, do no harm, do no wrong, look after thy neighbour. And I'm not godly, start thinking, do no harm, do no wrong, look after thy neighbour.